University Earth and Environmental Science. That's actually how it goes. It is. I'm a first-year PhD student, and I'm interested in botany. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that today. So first, before I start, I just want to tell you what I'm studying because it's kind of relevant. I'm studying a group of plants called the milkweeds and their relatives. Does anybody know what milkweeds are? You've probably all seen them, if you know it or not. So they're a really common weed. They're all across the country. They're about yay high usually. Has anybody seen these? You know what I'm talking about? You know what they look like?
Are they the ones that you like flip over the leaves and there's monarch caterpillars underneath?
Yeah, they're monarch caterpillars' really only food source. So that's part of why they're interesting to people. There's a lot of other interesting things about them, like to do with their pollen and how it's aggregated. They have a white latex that comes out when you break the stems that has some interesting chemical properties. They have these big flowers that are in groups that look kind of like pom-poms. So, all right, you've probably all seen them, whether you realize it or not. So that's what I'm studying, and there are a lot of interesting things about them, like I said, but what I'm interested in is how they get pollinated. So they have these tiny little flowers, like I said, that are in these big palms. But something kind of weird happens when some insects visit them. A lot of insects get their legs stuck in the flowers and they die because they can't get out. So that's kind of weird, right? You would think that the plant would not try to kill its own pollinators. So that's something that I'm going to try to investigate in my research. Why is that happening? Are they doing that? Is there like a reason for that that would be advantageous to the plant? So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about floral structure. Partly because it's kind of the basis for my research, also because I think it's a good reference point for a lot of like intro bio classes. So when I've taught like high school and college age students before, I use that as a reference point for a lot of things. It can tell you, so if you know the structure of a flower, that can tell you three main things. One of them is what kind of pollinators visit it. Another important thing it can tell you is what type of plant it is, so it can help you ID the plant. And then another important part is it can tell you what kind of natural selection pressures are on the plant. Right. So I'm going to go over the basic structure of the flower and then try to address these really quickly. I might not actually get to them. Right. So a lot of students I've taught don't realize that all flowers have basically the same structure. So you can think of it as like a bullseye with concentric circles, right? On the outer circle is a ring of sepals. Does anybody know what sepals are?
Petals. It's just the petals.
They're like petals, yeah. I'm going to draw 4 sepals on the outside. Sepals are like petals. They're usually harder, they're green, they're not very pretty most of the time, but they protect the rest of the flower on the inside. So next we have petals. Petals are usually pretty big. They're the attractive part of the flower, at least to us. They're usually more fragile than the sepals, and they're also not reproductive. So both of these parts are in a group called the perianth, and they're not reproductive. Can anyone guess what the next circle in is?
The reproductive organs.
Right. So the next circle in is reproductive. It would be the male part of the flower. So these would be the anthers, and the anthers have the pollen on them. And then the last part in, any guesses? It's another reproductive part. What?
The female part?
Yep, it's the female part, which we call the carpel. So the carpel can have ovaries in it. Sometimes one, sometimes more. All right, so incidentally, this is the structure of a milkweed flower that I just drew. All right, so if you had to guess, just just looking at this diagram, which of these rings, or whorls we call them, what do you think develops first? What?
Probably the middle.
The middle? Okay. I guess that was a 50-50 shot. It's actually the outside.
Oh, okay.
So, close. So the sepals generally develop first. Any guesses why that would be? There's a purpose for that.
Protected.
Yeah, they protect the rest of the flower as it develops. So again, there is a lot of variation when it comes to this. There's always exceptions with everything in biology, right? But this is generally the structure of a flower. This is the order the parts will always be in, even if they're different shapes, or you might have some missing. Like some flowers don't actually have petals. Some flowers aren't perfect flowers, and they only have male or female parts. Okay, so now that we've kind of covered that, I just want to address these things I brought up before. So the first thing we'll talk about is knowing what kind of pollinators visit the flower. So, some room here. It's kind of a stereotypical looking flower, right? So say this flower was about this big around and yellow petals. What kind of pollinator would you guess this flower is trying to utilize? You know that's like an anthropogenic way of putting it, but what kind of pollinator do you think this flower uses?
Bees.
Bees? That's a really good guess. Bees generally are attracted to yellow flowers, also blue or white sometimes. All right, how about a flower that looks like that from the side? Any guesses?
Hummingbird.
A hummingbird, yeah. Spot on again. So we could guess that there might be some nectar down here, and this flower is utilizing pollinators with long mouths, because they're the only ones that can reach down the side, right? All right, we'll do one last one. So you have this inflorescence, which is a group of flowers together, hanging down, really tiny flowers. They're green, they don't smell nice. What type of pollinator might that plant be?
Animals or air?
Air would be right, yeah. So generally, animals pay attention to flowers that are showy or smell good or offer rewards. This kind of flower doesn't do any of that. It's not very attractive as we would think of it. So it's probably wind pollinated. It's hanging down like this, the wind can come through and shake out the pollen. Alright, so that's the kind of stuff I would talk about, just giving you examples of how you might be able to tell what type of pollinator goes with it. The other things, I don't know, I feel like I've been talking for a while already. Knowing flower structure can help us ID the type of plant. So there's a pretty simple rule we talk about with introvise students. If a flower has 4 or 5 petals, it's probably a type of plant called a dicot. It has sets of 3, not just petals, sorry, all the parts in that circle I was talking about. If it has parts and sets of 3s, it's probably a monocot, like a lily, things like that. And then I would also usually talk about how natural selection might be acting on flowers. So if you see a flower like this that has this really long tube, maybe for some reason it's trying to keep out pollinators or visitors that have short mouths. So that could tell you different things. Maybe there are too many pollinators around. It only wants these types, something like that. Any questions? Yeah.
You said bees are only attracted to like yellow, blue, and white flowers. Is there a reason?
Well, they're not only attracted to those colors. Those are the main ones. I've read that bees can only see those colors. They don't see colors like orange or maybe purple. Correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, different types of animal pollinators pay attention to different colors. Like maroon flowers are usually pollinated by flies. anybody guess why that would be? Yeah, it looks like a carcass, so they're attracted to that. Sometimes flowers that are kind of a dull white are more adapted for night pollinators like moths or bats that wouldn't really be attracted to colors you would see better in the day. Did that answer your question? Yeah.
Is wind pollination, like the one that you drew hanging, would that be like the ancestral sort of plant approach to reproduction? And then the other ones came later?
Generally, think of it as being more ancestral trait. Yeah.
What is the difference between monocot and dicot, and besides having the sense of four and three?
Yeah. So did everybody hear that was the difference between the monocot and the dicot?
Yeah, but what is the practical?
The what?
The practicalness. I'm just curious. That's a general. I've always been curious.
Yeah. Well, we usually talk about. I think talking about monocots and dicots might be most useful in agriculture or a couple other areas. A lot of grain crops are monocots. A lot of like legumes and other crops like that are dicots. So we kind of split them up like that. Yeah.
Is there a relation between like C3 and C4 photosynthesis
Yes.
and monocots and dicots?
There is. And I always mix this up. Monocots typically have C3.
Are they the grains?
What?
Which one are the grains?
The grains are the monocots.
Okay.
I think, I'm sorry, I'm going to be wrong because I always mix them up, but I think monocots typically have C3, dicots typically have C4 or CAM.
Okay.
And please correct me if I'm wrong. I know you all have been over this stuff too. So, I forget what we were talking about before. Oh, other differences between monocots and dicots besides petal numbers. Because again, there's usually multiples of 3 parts in the monocots, multiples of 4 or 5 in the dicots. You can also tell by looking at leaves. So monocots usually have leaves with parallel venation, like grass, and dicots usually have like palmate venation or something like that. Yeah.
Are monocots and dicots reproductively isolated from each other, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they are different lineages of plants.
Okay.
So probably won't find a monocot-dicot hybrid. They're not that closely related.
Any comments on the presentation?
Yeah.
You interacted well with the audience, I think, and even with like you handled the answer to the one question, which one first well.
At the beginning, you were standing at the front, moving and talking, which was a little bit distracting for me. I think that I personally can't pay attention if somebody is talking and moving at the same time. But just like they said yesterday, just pick a spot, talk, then move, then talk. If you want.
I know I'm really bad at that. I know I'm like always doing that. Sorry.
That's okay. Don't be sorry.
Yeah.
I was never interested in plant biology, but I was engaged in that. So
Okay.
the way you presented it was really good. I never really think of natural selection and plants together, but
Yeah. Oh, and something I forgot to mention, which is again what I'm actually working on. I think it is really interesting the natural selection pressures on flowers because you have these male and female parts within most flowers if they're perfect, and they don't have the same pressures working on them. So sometimes you'll have the male and the female parts of a flower basically working for different agendas, and there's kind of a tug of war going on, especially in